Alrighty, welcome back to Shut Up and Ball. I am Aaron Chow, accompanied by Mr. John Harris, and we're back to do our Week 9 picks against the spread for the NFL. So we will dive right into that. Going to start off on the East Coast, but a West Coast team going East Coast, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. They are favored by 3.5 going to the Atlanta Falcons. In terms of key injuries here, as you will probably know, no Keenan Allen and no Mike Williams for the Chargers. So, John, are we going back with the cover Kings here, or are you going with LA?
I am going with the Atlanta Falcons. No Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams. That's tough because Atlanta's secondary is pretty banged up. AJ Terrell's not playing for the Falcons, but I don't know with, Palmer and DeAndre Carter and Gerald Everett, like if they have the weapons to expose the lack of, depth at the Falcons corner room right now. And also on the other side of the ball, Atlanta's going to run a ton, and the Chargers are like the second worst run defense in the entire NFL outside of Houston. So, I just think that everything Atlanta's going to want to do, they're going to be successful at. Meanwhile, the Chargers, I think they can possibly even win this game, but they're on the road. They're without their two receivers, without their star left tackle, without Joey Bosa, without J.C. Jackson, without just a lot of players that are not playing. And they have not really impressed me so far this year, unfortunately, after really high expectations. So going with the Falcons.
Almost went without unmuting myself. I'm going with the Falcons also here, John. Very similar to what you said. I just want to add to Chargers haven't really been able to stop the run game, and we know through much chagrin that Atlanta loves to run the ball. So stylistically, that's going to be an issue, although Atlanta can't really pass the ball. So we'll see if Brandon Staley adjusts. I'm assuming they'll have a lot of stack boxes, but even then, this year, they really haven't shown they have the horses to stop the run, even when it's obvious running situations. So we'll see how. I'm just not confident the Chargers can handle that very well. And then, like you already alluded to, offense, it's been a struggle just for the offense. I've already seen, and who this is coming from, people trying to say, oh, well, see the real Justin Herbert, blah, blah, blah. Basically trying. I heard the take that Tua was better than Herbert. Again, they're starting to rise back up, John. Tua and starting to gain strength again. And I'm just like, he has nothing right now. Like, I don't know what you want. But anyways.
The people who say that, like, they're just telling on themselves that, like, they don't know how to evaluate a quarterback as an individual.
It's 4 games.
And
it's 4 games.
It's 4 games in which Justin Herbert doesn't have multiple receivers, doesn't have his left tackle. He's playing through broken ribs. Like, there's a lot of excuses that I've heard from the Tua camp about Tua that now all of a sudden the excuses don't apply to Justin Herbert. Like, when both are healthy with their full weapons, Justin Herbert has shown that he's able to throw into tighter windows. He can throw the ball deeper. He can throw with more velocity. He's a better decision maker because although people want to, more, he has a lesser interception percentage on his career. Sorry to rant about this, but the people who are doing that, they literally watch football, but they don't actually know how to logically understand football, and they don't know how to evaluate a player as an individual.
Recency bias, man. Anyways, so. And long story short, I am going Atlanta also with John. I do expect this to be a close game. And also for the final note too, West Coast team going East Coast for an early game too. Usually that doesn't really bode well for the West Coast team. So now we go, speaking of Miami, now we're going to head to that game. The Miami Dolphins, they are favored by 5.5 going to the Windy City of Chicago. So are we going with Tua here, or you think the Bears can cover?
I think that, and I know I just ranted about Tua and the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a very good team. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Tua is a good quarterback, but just in terms of that comparison, I have problems with it. I think the Dolphins are a really good team, but this is a game where I just kind of have this feeling that Chicago's going to be like scrappy throughout. I was really impressed with what they were able to do against Dallas's defense last week, and although Dallas, I would say that if there's one thing they're not elite at, it would be run defense. Like, they're still very good at it. I think they're better than the Dolphins at it. But still, like the Bears are able to have success in that way. And I think that the Bears are going to have success in this game against Miami's run defense. I think that I'm worried that Miami's passing attack could get out of control because Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are just destroying the entire league, and Chicago doesn't really have the secondary to stop that. Like Jalen Johnson's all right, but both those receivers are better. Eddie Jackson's pretty good, but he's a safety, like he can't stop both. So I do worry about that. But that being said, I'm taking Chicago because I just got this weird feeling at home. They're a scrappy team. Justin Fields in the run game. They could bleed clock. I got a feeling they keep this close. Maybe Miami wins by a field goal. But I don't feel super confident just because of the speed they have at receiver and how just dangerous those two guys are. Also, Bradley Chubb, I assume he's playing, and it feels like against a pretty trash Chicago offensive line in terms of pass blocking, he could maybe make some damage now that he's got some renewed motivation because he's on a winning team. But I'm still going Chicago.
All right. Well, here's technically our second disagreement of the week, first of the podcast. I'm going with the Miami Dolphins. I think, obviously, you mentioned the Bradley Chubb factor. I think the defense will probably be the ones that win them this game, like in actuality, be the difference maker. I just expect they've been very turnover dependent. They're very aggressive defense, that whether it be for better or for worse. And especially against the Bears, like you mentioned, kind of a conservative. We're just going to run the ball for the most part, have a few, plays for Justin Field to throw the ball. I just feel like Miami, the defense can be all over that. It kind of plays into their hand a little bit. They'll probably force a turnover or two. I think that will be key. And then, we know the offense, like I mentioned, I know I just kind of criticized him per se, but Tua's going to make the appropriate throws, basically just get the ball to his playmakers, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and, you can throw Gesicki in there, whenever you're doubling those guys, he's a threat too. I think that they'll do enough and he'll take care of the ball where it's probably going to be like a 29 type game. I just get that weird feeling where, probably be like 20-13 and then, scoop, score, fumble, or just something like that. I just feel like I just don't trust the Chicago offense, even though they did have Chase Claypool, who I like. Just don't trust their passing offense to take advantage of an over-aggressive Miami team. So I'm going Miami to win and cover. John is going with Chicago. So we'll see if Chicago can pull off the upset at home. Another team that is at home, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. They are favored by 7.5, hosting the Carolina Panthers. Where are you going with this one, John?
Well, Cincinnati, I know they're at home, but I'm still kind of surprised they're this big of a favorite coming off the game that they just did with Cleveland. I don't know. I feel like they were kind of exposed a little bit in terms of their offense. They don't have Jamar Chase, who's that game breaker guy who's going to beat you deep over the top. And I've been mentioning that a lot with the Chargers of like, okay, they don't have that speed guy anymore. That's what we're seeing with the Bengals all of a sudden. They don't have the speed. T. Higgins is a great receiver, but he's not a speedster. And so I worry that Carolina's defense in this game is going to be able to keep this one close. J.C. Horn's a great corner, been doing really good this year. Jeremy Chin in the secondary, the fast overall, front seven that they have. I don't know. I just feel like the way that the Bengals are playing right now, especially, with the state of their offensive line, without Jamar Chase, you can very easily load the box because you know that you're not going to get beat over the top because either one, Joe Burrow doesn't have the time to, make the throw deep downfield, or two, the receivers just simply aren't fast enough to create that much separation immediately off the line like a Jamar Chase is. And it's sort of a combo of both because if they were faster, then Joe Burrow wouldn't need as much time. So overall, I'm taking Carolina just because I don't have enough belief in the Cincinnati offense to be able to separate from a Carolina offense that's, as we've seen so far, they're going to run the ball. PJ Tucker's not going to be asked to do anything crazy. He's going to play a smart, efficient, style where he's going to check down when he needs to. He's feeding his playmakers in DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall Jr., who's getting increased playing time. So overall, this game, I just feel like it's going to be a really slow, sort of boring contest. And to me, that favors the underdog at this big of a spread. So I'm taking Carolina.
Yeah, I'm going Carolina too. And honestly, wouldn't be shocked if they they pull off the upset, because we've seen somehow, some way, we thought, by addition, this line would be better. it is, even ratings wise, it has been, this offensive line's been worse than last year's offensive line. And Brian Burns, very good edge rusher. I feel like he's probably him and Joe Burrow are gonna get close, not in the way that Joe Burrow wants to. And even then, they still have forgetting, I want to say, not Dwayne Brown, but their defensive tackle at Auburn. Why am I blanking on him?
Derek Brown.
See, I was close. D Brown. I was very close. And it is a fast defense. And yeah, you mentioned the absence of Jamar Chase has already been felt. I think it definitely once again plays into Carolina's hands too. We know that they have talent on this defense. It's just, unfortunately, the other side of the ball, like you mentioned, hasn't been as good until recent weeks. And yeah, I think PJ Walker, he's shown, managed the game very well. Make a few plays to his playmakers. And like we saw with the Hail Mary, he's got an arm, so he can take some shots if he needs to. And obviously, he's a solidly mobile quarterback. So yeah, this is
just on the arm thing real quick. So next gen stats from Amazon, it's like came out in 2018 or something. Yeah. That was the longest throw in terms of air yards they have ever recorded since like they have became in existence, which once again is since 2018, so not like super long, but crazy long throw from BJ Walker.
Anyways, we talked about how Atlanta blew that one, but anyways, I just think Carolina is one of those games where this one is where we're kind of glad we're getting the spread, because either way we're kind of leaning potentially Carolina, but one of the rare games where you're okay with the spread, taking the underdog. You love it. So that is that. Now we go to the NFC North. My Green Bay Packers, they are favored by 3.5 going to Detroit. Both teams coming off a loss. Obviously, Packers didn't do anything at the deadline. Detroit let go of TJ Hawkinson at the deadline. So, obvious, what direction they're going. John, what do you think happens here between my Packers and the Lions?
I know that there seems to be some reason to be down on the Packers, and they have not been kind to me in the most recent times that I've picked them. But I'm going with the Packers here. The key issue for me is Detroit's defense. I think that their secondary is not good enough to really just destroy this Packers receiver room. Like, yeah, there's not a lot of talent in this Packers receiver room, but Allen Lazard might be back, and I don't know. I just feel like Aaron Rodgers is good enough to where even with this lack at receiver, with how bad the Detroit secondary is, he can make stuff happen. And also Detroit's run defense is not very good either. And so I feel like the Packers run game can get going with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. And so I don't know. Maybe I have too much false belief in this Packers offense to figure things out against a divisional opponent, but it feels like if there's any time for the Packers to kind of start building a rhythm, it would be against a team that Aaron Rodgers has historically owned. So I'm going to go with the Packers here. Also, without Hawkinson, Swift is still kind of banged up. Jameson Williams still isn't back. DJ Chark's still out. So the Lions just don't have a ton of weapons as of right now. So I don't know if I trust Jamal Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff to get it done. So I'm going with the Packers here.
All right. Well, we have another difference. I'm going with the Detroit Lions. This is not for the pod jinx, although that would be great if I am right. Let's just start this way. Lions, their defense, main weakness is you can take advantage of their secondary, but I don't think we can take advantage of their secondary. I just don't have the confidence in the downfield passing game. And I just feel like, too, just because of our offense, it's, a lot of the short, quick passes, RPOs, quick little, if you go on call screens, more like just swing passes off. And that kind of bails out New York, their secondary because they don't really have to cover. And then, too, on the other side, Packers defense hasn't been great. Definitely not, as advertised. Haven't been horrible, but going up against a pretty good Detroit offensive line, I think Detroit would definitely be able to run the ball. And Jared Goff's shown, especially indoors, he's been able to take care of the ball and make some plays. You're going to have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jamal Williams has shown he can be a serviceable back. I just, you mentioned this is like a get right, a chance to, get some momentum, get right game. I just feel like we've had opportunities the past, we had against Washington a couple of weeks ago. We've had a couple of games, my Packers, to to take advantage of that and get on track per se, at least get a win. But I'm just not confident that they'll do that. Regardless, kind of like I mentioned with the Carolina, like if we do win, I don't see us winning by more than 3. I think this will be a close game. I am going with the Detroit Lions. Wouldn't be shocked if they pull off the win here at home. But I hope I'm wrong, at least in regards to the win part. And my Packers find some rhythm and flow, or at least just get a win on the board. Maybe that's just what we need. So we'll see what happens there in this NFC North battle between those two teams. Now we go to New England, Foxborough, where the Patriots are at home. They're favored by 5.5, hosting Sam Ehlinger, right? I said that right? And the Indianapolis Colts. John, who do you got for this one between these two teams?
Short and simple. I'm taking the Patriots. Bill Belichick's record against first and second year quarterbacks is pretty absurd. Ehlinger is technically not a rookie, but this is his second career start. And I just don't really believe in his ability, especially without Jonathan Taylor. Deion Jackson seems like a very serviceable backup, has had some good games, but the offensive line play has been poor, and I just don't know where they're going to get points, to be honest. And meanwhile, for the Patriots, I trust Ramondre Stevenson. I trust Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. Mac Jones is a starter, but you never know with the Patriots right now. I trust either of them to just play, solid football the Patriot way, do the right things, nothing crazy, nothing special. Come out here with a pretty easy win with their defense, probably forcing a couple turnovers, getting them easy field position. So going with the Patriots.
I, too, am going with the Patriots. Like basically every reason you mentioned. Just Indy's, for lack of a better phrase, just kind of been disappointing this year. I think we can all, basically realize that at this point. And yeah, especially with already missing a playmaker in Jonathan Taylor. If he was playing, I would maybe think about it. But yeah, this is definitely a week where I wish I had New England's defense in our dynasty league. Unfortunately, I dropped them. I forgot for who or for why, but it was for a good reason. Nonetheless, if you've got New England's defense in the fantasy, I expect a good week. So there you go. We both go New England to not only win but cover against the Colts, keeping it in their division. The Patriots division, we have the Buffalo Bills. They're favored by 12.5 going to the New York Jets, where the sky's falling down because they had one loss against the Patriots, and world's falling apart. Zach Wilson needs to go. Anyways, John, who do you have between these two in this matchup?
I don't think Zach Wilson needs to go. He's obviously a young quarterback. He's been dealing with injuries.
It's just all the New York fans, they're so just self-deprecating. As soon as one bad thing happens, just get rid of them. Anyway, sorry.
Right. I bring up that preface, though, because I do want to say I'm going Buffalo because I do think that Zach Wilson's going to turn the ball over a couple times. They don't really have that great of a run game without Breece Hall. I like Michael Carter. I like James Robinson. I don't think either of them are talented enough like Breece Hall is to really expose defenses with big plays. I think that they can be productive, but I just don't think that they're going to be so productive that like Breece Hall was, and where they can, build their entire offensive scheme around him and really rely on him to allow Zach Wilson to do easier things. I don't think that's going to happen. And so I think Zach Wilson's going to be forced into passing a lot. I think they're going to be playing from behind because we know that Buffalo is very good. Now, that being said, I do think the Jets defense actually matches up pretty well here. But I still think that Buffalo, they're going to be taking the lead. The Jets at some point are going to be playing from behind, and I think Zach Wilson might force the issue a couple times, and that could lead to a Jordan Poyer pick, and he gets a big, long return, and there you go. Or another thing, the Jets' offensive line hasn't been as bad as we thought it was coming into the season, but they're still not great, and this Buffalo defense, they blitz the least amount while getting the most pressure in the entire NFL. And so Von Miller, Gregory Rousseau, Ed Oliver, all those guys on the defensive line, I just think that they're going to have a field day against this Jets offensive line that, once again, can force more turnovers out of Zach Wilson as he's under siege. And they're going to be able to do that without having to commit more people on the rush. And so obviously more people in coverage, which once again, more potential turnovers. So I just feel like the turnover battle is going to be the key here. And so I am going with Buffalo to cover despite how big it is. I was wrong about Philly by like 1 or 2 points. I'm hoping that doesn't happen again because these big spreads, they do scare me.
Well, they scare me, and I'm going with the Jets. I mean, you really hit all the points. I still think Buffalo's going to win this game. I'm not in no way, in fact, trying to say that the Jets are going to upset them. I just think, though, especially last week, those last interceptions too by Zach Wilson, just really bad. Like, you can't really even be like, oh, like one of them was, like I said, I still think it was a lazy throwaway. That first one to Devin McCourty, and then the next one was just, I once again, I don't know. I don't know if he was trying to force that. Regardless, I think they're like, I imagine he's going to go back to the play style they had the previous weeks. And I know you mentioned he might be forced out of that. But I still think they're probably going to play rather conservatively. And I think their defense will keep them close enough. And, Zach Wilson, I think, too, kind of gone to miss. He has made a couple of plays. They haven't, led to like touchdowns. But, he'll makes a couple of plays with his feet. And some of them don't even show up on the stat board or stat sheet, just keeping them in solid field position, throwing the ball away, things like that. I think he'll keep, not him, but I think the Jets will keep it close enough. They may have an opportunity or two to, at least, I wouldn't be shocked if it's like a 14-point game, fourth quarter, Buffalo kind of calls off the Dogs, or like a 17-point game. And then, they have a confidence touchdown. Kind of like how my Packers, what happened to my Packers there. We got that late touchdown to Torrey to barely cover. So I think I won't be shocked if it's a similar result. And but another reason too I'm picking against Buffalo spread wise is their offense was a little flat last week, and like you already alluded to, like I said, Jets defense is pretty good. I would say probably playing better right now than the Packers defense as a whole. And one of my concerns for the Bills was like if Stephon Diggs gets taken away, I'm not sure if Gabe Davis or Isaiah McKenzie can step up to be the main guy. And especially now, granted, they move Diggs around. I think got Sauce plays on one side. Sauce Gardner's proved that very good corner, and I just get a feeling that their passing game might not be as good. Didn't come out as good and off the bye as I thought it was going to be. So potential concern there, but we both feel the Buffalo will take care of business at the end of the day. John just feels that they'll do so against the spread. But now we go to the Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings. They are favored by 3.5 going to the Washington Commanders. Commanders, potentially being sold, such. Nonetheless, Vikings being slept on. I forget because the buys always screw up. They're 6-1, 7-1. They got one loss. That's basically all.
6-1.
6-1. Are you going with the Vikings here, or are you going with your division rival?
Well, I'm wearing their jersey because I am going with the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not a Vikings fan, but I'm picking them against the Washington Commanders, almost said football team. And that's why I am supporting the Vikings this week, because I always root against the other NFC East teams. So, I'm going with the Vikings here. I think that Taylor Heineke and the Commanders, they're interesting because although I think the other quarterbacks they've had are better than Heineke, it feels like Heineke just has this energy that the team tries harder when he's there. I don't know if that's just like a feeling that I have and it's totally wrong and it's just based on the fact they have some close games, but it feels like there's just this sort of belief in Taylor Heineke. He sort of won over the locker room, very likable guy. There's less expectations for Washington, and so they play better. That being said, that's typically against other teams like the Colts, where you're playing against Sam Ehlinger in his first career start, and there was a lot of weaknesses there. The Packers, who are just out of rhythm, and Aaron Rodgers is great, but they don't have any receivers, so you can kind of take advantage of that. Like teams that have very obvious holes, I think the Vikings aren't perfect, but I don't think they have a ton of holes. I think that Kirk Cousins has been playing very efficient this year. I think they have a lot of weapons. They can rely on Dalvin Cook. They can rely on Jefferson. You add in Hawkinson now, so they're even more deadly. And their defense, although it's not elite by any means, they have playmakers at all three levels. You got Zadarius Smith and Daniil Hunter on the defensive line, some good defensive tackles. You got Eric Kendricks at the linebacker spot. Harrison Smith, despite how old he is, he's still a solid veteran safety who's making plays. So I'm going with the Vikings here. I just think that they are the more sound team. And Washington, despite, I think, over-exceeding my expectations with Taylor Heineke typically, I think they're going to come back down to earth here.
Yeah, I'm with you in the fact that I'm going with Minnesota. Like you already alluded to, there's a very well-rounded team. Even if we do want to kind of dog on them a little bit, nonetheless, Washington defense has been solid, but like you just mentioned, went up against a Sam Ehlinger and a struggling Packers offense. I think this Minnesota offense really hasn't been fireworks all the time, but it's been one of the more reliable offenses. They can lean on Dalvin Cook in the run game, and then if that gets going, they can get their play action pass game going. And this year, the difference has also been though, even if Dalvin Cook and the run game don't get going, the passing game has been creative enough. Getting the ball more to Justin Jefferson and getting more guys involved. Been interested to see too how involved TJ Hawkinson's going to be in this first game and going forward. How much they'll utilize him in the run game and his impact there. And then on the flip side, Washington's offense has been solid, but it kind of came in spurts the past few weeks too. Remember, first half against the Packers went very poorly for that offense. Heineke struggled, and then even last week took a late drive for them to win that game, but their offense didn't really have much rhythm and flow, and especially once again that's real no full offense to Heineke, but I'm just not confident that the Washington offense can just put up enough points basically with the Vikings. So I am going with Minnesota as well. Surprised this is a small of a spread. Granted, once again, they are the road favorite, so that does a factor in here. So we both go Minnesota against or over the Washington football team to cover that 3.5 point spread. Now I'm gonna head over to the Las Vegas Raiders. They are favored by 1.5 going to good old Jacksonville. Raiders coming off that skunk from last game, and Jags, trying to bounce back off a couple of losses here. What are your thoughts on how this game will go down, John?
The Raiders, obviously last week, very embarrassing performance. That being said, I saw some stat somewhere that, and I can't remember exactly what the numbers were, but teams that score 0 points and get shut out, typically the next week put up a lot of points. And I'm sort of banking on that. Jacksonville's defense has been good. They've been better than I expected. But I don't know. I just think that the Raiders have too much talent on that offense and probably too much motivation after the way they got embarrassed last week to come out flat again. So I'm expecting a big day from some of their stars like Jacobs, like Devontae Adams, just because I think they need to send a message not only to the rest of the NFL, but to themselves about, what they're capable of. So I'm taking the Raiders here. I think the Jaguars are a good team. But I don't know. I feel like the Raiders are going to come out very hungry, and I think that's going to propel them to a pretty sizable win.
All right. Well, I am also going with the Raiders here. Basically, most of the points John mentioned, and I just can't trust the Jags right now. I don't think they're a bad team. It's just they're still trying to find their way, and it just seems like every week they find a way to shoot themselves in the foot. Whether it be Trevor Lawrence, throwing a bad red zone interception, or Doug Peterson going for it on having a questionable fourth down call, and then ends up biting them in the butt later that maybe should have taken the points. There's little things like that. They always just has been an issue for them. So, and on the flip side, I just think, basically kind of like the stats say, I think it was just a poor week, a bad matchup, the Saints defense that kind of matched up well with the Raiders. And I just don't think Jacksonville matches up as well with them. So I'm going with the Raiders here. This is a tough one to gauge in general. Both teams kind of desperate too. So that'll make it interesting. But yeah, John and myself both going Las Vegas. Oh yeah, another thing that scares me too is just the Jacksonville effect. I just feel like two teams tend to, sleepwalk when playing in Jacksonville, the visiting team. But I feel like the Raiders, just once again, because they're coming off a loss, maybe they won't, like you mentioned, because they got skunked. So now we go to an NFC West division showdown, and it is between the Arizona Cardinals. They are at Arizona, favored by 2.5 against the Seattle Seahawks, which is surprising because, once again, Seahawks are the division leaders, so they're not favored here. John, who do you have between these two in the Battle of the Birds here?
Well, the last time they played, I took Arizona, and I'm not doing it again simply because they It bit me in the butt last time. I really thought that they'd come out strong with a good offensive performance. They scored 9 points. They didn't have DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm not sure that he's going to dramatically shift what this offense is able to do. Also, Seattle's defense has really impressed me recently. Early in the year, I thought they were pretty bad, and this team was going to rely on a lot of shootouts. But recently, they've been very solid. And, even last week against the Giants, they pretty much shut everything down. And the Giants' only touchdown came from a special teams error. I think if they clean that up, they demolished the Giants last week. And for the Cardinals, once again, still just have issues with Cliff. I still worry about their run game because I don't know the status of even James Conner or Darrell Williams. And so maybe rocking with Benjamin, and that's no shot at him. But then you just have a lack of depth there, and he's a backup for a reason. So I don't know. I got concerns about Arizona. Meanwhile, Seattle is just sort of breaking my mind every single week with what they're able to do. Even Geno Smith, some of the throws he made last week, I was like, man, if Geno was able to do this his first couple of years in the league, people would have looked at him as a future franchise quarterback. And I don't know, he's just playing incredibly well. I think he's number 1 in the entire NFL in passer rating on plays of 20 plus yards downfield, or he leads the league in completion percentage on 20 plus yards downfield. He's amazing with the deep ball. And I think their offensive play calling scheme has been really good too. Playing to Geno's strengths and relying on Kenneth Walker. I don't know. I just think that Arizona, they got a lot of issues, and Seattle's just proving me wrong every week. So I'm riding Seattle.
Yeah, I'm riding that train with you. Love what they've done offensively. And yeah, like I said, Geno's been an amazing revelation for them. You don't answer this. I'm just saying, it's a question I want to put out there into the ether that I have heard too. Was Russ the problem? I don't know. I'm just saying. You have to answer. I'm just saying. I'm putting it out into the ether, John. It's in the ether.
I'm going to answer. I don't think Russ was the problem because literally Russ's entire career, minus last year, they were winning had all winning seasons.
I think it's ridiculous. But last year at least, hey, maybe things were because.
But even then, I think people are just comparing. They're comparing Russ to Geno right now, but they're also ignoring the fact that Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas have been amazing additions at the tackle spots. They got Kenneth Walker to where last year, Rashad Penny only showed up for the last 5 games. They were struggling with injuries due to Chris Carson throughout the year. There's just a lot more issues. They didn't have Tariq Woolen. They didn't have all these different pieces that everybody's just it's just Russ. But I think this team has changed so dramatically. And also I think that Russ's struggles right now are also they're being overly blamed on only him when once again there's more to it. To me, the biggest thing is that they're not running an offense that Russ is good at. Richard Sherman, and I don't know what you're about to say about him, but he did say that if you were running the offense that they ran in Seattle for Russ, that Russ would be the guy that everybody expects him to be. Those are Richard Sherman's words. And so I have to imagine that Richard Sherman knows what he's talking about. And maybe that means Russ is a system quarterback, but I don't blame Russ.
Oh, and that's what I was going to, because, the system was pretty bland in Seattle, but what we've seen this year, I think, too, is they've had more concepts to their offense and more, a little more creativity, especially in down the field and down the middle of the field too. So I'm just saying, just maybe something food for thought. But long story short, I'm going Seattle as well.
But once again, it does help. You got some tackles now. They never gave Russ an offensive line. They never gave him one.
Yeah, but he's, I'm just saying. It's paid
they
a lot
also
of
never
money.
gave him Kenneth Walker.
He had, Penny was solid. Chris Carson, they always had found ways at running back for the most part. Anyways, but we all know we're the anti-Cliff Kingsbury people here, basically. We don't hate him just because he's a poor offensive coordinator. So, yeah, you mentioned that Seattle's defense has been really good, too, at least really solid. Better than last year. They're not just messing stuff up. They have a sound system. Seems like they found the right pieces. They're making it work. So, yeah, I just don't see Cliff cracking the code on that side. Although D-Hop's put up numbers, the offense has still struggled, as we've seen in Arizona. And, I expect Seattle to keep cruising like you did as well. So we both go Seattle there. Going to a rematch of the NFC in the NFC playoffs. Now it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Tampa. They are favored by 3.5, hosting the LA Rams. These two teams have, like my Packers, been one of the more these have been pretty disappointing thus far. Rams, Super Bowl champs, Bucks, Tom Brady's back, but it hasn't been going well there either. Who do you think gets the crucial W here and can right their ship?
I don't have faith in either of these teams right now, and so I'm just taking the Rams because they're the underdog, and at least I get the points. That's really the only logic I have here. Also, it might be flawed, but they're the reigning Super Bowl champions, so I have to imagine that at some point they can figure something out. That's what I really want to believe. Maybe they don't, but I just think with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Sean McVay, at some point they got to figure it out, and maybe that's this week. But like I said, it's two teams that I don't really believe in, so my main logic is I'm just going to take the points because that feels like a lot safer of a bet when I feel like these teams are essentially 50-50.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rams, but kind of feeling how you are. There are a few different points, though. I expect Aaron Donald to be a huge issue for the Bucs interior this game. We mentioned there's already been interior, especially pass protection issues there. And, he's had pretty good success against them even when they were really good last year and the year before. And then secondary-wise, Ramsey's probably going to match up with Evans. And, Chris Godwin's good. Once again, we've seen you get Brady, pressured early. He starts, maybe checking the ball down more and just isn't as aggressive because, being chased by Aaron Donald. And then I am worried a little bit on the flip side about the Rams offense, of course. Hey, they brought back Cam Akers, they said I don't think they actually had offers. I think they were, saying they had offers to get him to come back basically because they couldn't get rid of him.
The report that I read was they actually were desperately trying to offer him to other teams, and they were all saying no.
Yeah, no teams want him. So it'd be interesting to see if they can make it work. Man, that's been killer for my fantasy team, the Cam Akers situation. Anyways, fantasy aside, hoping Cooper Kupp plays this game, right? It's still not confirmed if he will. He's been dealing with an injury. But nonetheless, they got Allen Robinson a little bit involved last week. And I'm not sure if they'll get Van Jefferson if he was back last week, but if he is too, regardless, another weapon. I expect them to kind of in an ugly way just get the win here, especially even if Cooper Kupp does play. It's probably going to end up being kind of like a field goal battle. Maybe one team gets a touchdown, but end of day, I'm just not confident in the Buccaneers interior. And I expect Raheem Morris, too, to have some creative defensive designs. He's done pretty well in that department against Brady and definitely has the horses or the people, the personnel available to him to make life hard on that Tampa offense. So I am going with the Los Angeles Rams as well. So we both pick them. Hopefully they can at least, like you mentioned, at least we're getting the point. So we expect it to be a close game nonetheless. Now we go to the Sunday Nighter where they are not expecting this to be a close game, John, because it is the Chiefs at home, favored by 11.5 against the Tennessee Titans. Still no confirmation if it's going to be Ryan Tannehill. Remember last week Malik Willis played or started for the Titans. So who do you have here? And Chiefs coming off a bye by the week also. So who do you have here between these two?
Well, I am assuming it's not going to be Ryan Tannehill. He's a game time decision. So even if he does play, I don't know how much of an impact he can make because I assume he's playing through injury. And if it's Malik Willis, even worse because I think we both agreed pre-draft, the guy needed a year or two to sit to learn. And I think the last week we saw, they were able to beat Houston, but that was because they did everything in their power to limit Malik Willis having any impact on the game whatsoever, just because I think they feel the same. And for the Chiefs, I just don't I think Derrick Henry can have success, but I don't think that Derrick Henry can outscore them. And that's really all it comes down to. I think Derrick Henry can, get 100 yards. I think he can get a touchdown, maybe two, something like that. But if the Titans' ceiling is 14, 17, 21 points, where the Chiefs can go out and put up 35, I got to go with Kansas City, especially since, to me, the Titans' defense, their strength is that defensive line with Jeffrey Simmons, and the Chiefs have bolstered up the interior of the offensive line. Creed Humphrey is debatably the best center in the entire NFL at this point. They have a really good offensive front, and I don't think that they're going to be able to destroy Patrick Mahomes like they might have been able to 2 years ago. And so when he has time, when they got weapons. All of a sudden, Kadarius Toney is magically healthy after moving from the Giants because I don't think he was injured.
Both his hamstrings are fine now, John. They're all good.
Yeah, apparently he shows up in Kansas City and now he's just magically healed.
That's Kansas City barbecue, maybe. That was a cure.
Maybe there needs to be an investigation of what was going on over there. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're going to dial up some sort of crazy play for Kadarius Toney because they just want to show him off. I don't know, maybe like a throw or something wild. Like it's the Chiefs thing to do. You got a new weapon, let's just do something wacky. And so yeah, overall, I just think the Chiefs, despite how big the spread is, there's just a big gap in the scoring potential for both teams, especially if Malik Willis is playing for the Titans.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add, I'm going with the Chiefs. And the only thing I want to add, because John's basically had all the points I wanted to. Only the last thing I want to add is Andy Reid off of bye week. And you mentioned they've had Kadarius Toney, basically for almost 2 weeks now. So yeah, I imagine they would have maybe not even just one, but yeah, maybe I won't be surprised if there's like at least 3 or 4 plays for him there. Regardless, Andy Reid's gonna have some creative stuff, probably some game plans.
Listen, I'm starting him in our dynasty league.
Oh wow,
that's partially out of necessity because everybody's on bye week, but I am starting him over the other option being Sky Moore.
I'm about to say, I don't know if our dynasty league is the best example, but yes, I understand. So yes, we're both going Kansas City. We expect them to not only win but cover. We're expecting it to be a blowout on Sunday nights for the Chiefs. And now we head to the Monday night game. That is between the Baltimore Ravens. They are favored by 2.5 going to the New Orleans Saints. Who do you have between these two teams, John?
I am going with the Saints. I feel like Baltimore has been good, but a lot of their games recently, I just don't feel like they have the crazy massive scoring potential. Bateman's out. I fear that Mark Andrews is not going to play as well. He did not practice today as of Friday when we're recording, and they said that if he doesn't practice tomorrow, then he probably won't play. So, it'll remain to be seen if he plays. Gus Edwards is dealing with injuries. I don't know if he's going to play, and so it just feels like it's going to be Lamar, Isaiah Likely, Devin Duvernay, Kenyon Drake. I don't know. I feel like they don't have what it's going to take to expose the Saints big time. I do think they could win, but I don't feel so confident in their ability to win that I'm going to take them. I feel like it's a coin flip, honestly, because I think that Kamara and Andy Dalton and what they're doing on offense right now, they've sort of figured out a groove. And I think that groove is relying on Kamara, relying on Chris Olave, letting your playmakers do work. I could see a healthy dose of Taysom Hill in this game. And I don't know. I just feel like the Saints are going to be scrappy in this one. I wouldn't be shocked if at home they come out with a win.
All right. Well, we are ending on a difference because I am going with Baltimore. Saints have had issues against the speedy read option quarterbacks in recent years. Look at the game that Jalen Hurts blew up on. And I think he also had a solid game against them last year. I forget. But regardless, their front is more built on power, so it's the speed. I think Lamar has advantage there. Although, even if it is, you mentioned, obviously downgrading from Andrews to Likely. I think we saw last week, not Mark Andrews, but hey, filled in pretty well for him, at least close enough. It was serviceable. No Bateman stinks, but the count had been without him for the past couple weeks. And Duvernay, they found ways to get him the ball and involved. And I just think Lamar and the offense are going to find a way to move the ball in the Saints defense, especially with Lamar and his ability to obviously be elusive and improvise and make plays on his own via, extending the pass or just tucking it and run. And on the flip side, the addition of Roquan Smith, I think, will help add some confusion in regards to, different blitz looks or coverages. Now they have him and Patrick Queen. Imagine they're going to, move those guys around and do different things with them, since they can both are really good in blitzing, but also good in dropping back in coverage. And especially since, no Michael Thomas ruled out for the year. Only wide receiver you really have to worry about is going to be Olave. And, so they can probably put whoever they feel better corner wise on them, or they can take turns. I just feel like there was going to be a crucial Andy Dalton turnover, because we're due for one. Just one. Andy's not terrible. We all know he's a very good backup, but I feel like a crucial one there. Then, Lamar makes maybe a couple plays. I just have a little bit better feeling about the Ravens as opposed to the Saints, who, yes, we saw them skunk the Raiders last week, but we've also seen them drop the ball, against the Cardinals, the two pick sixes, things like that. We've seen them. And then, against the Seahawks, they got ran out of that game too. The defense just inexplicably didn't show up. So just have a little more faith in Baltimore. So that's why I'm going with the Ravens. So there is technically our fourth difference of the pod, fifth one of our picks. But so those are the picks for week 9. Do you want to do it? I forget who I went first, I think, last week, right? On the locks.
Let's see who was picked last week. I think you did.
I want to say I did because it was our third week doing it, right? So I think I went first. Or let me see. Yeah, I think it's the third. Yeah, so I think it's your turn because I did it.
Okay, I'm going first. I haven't even thought about who I want to lock. Oof, this is tough. I'm gonna lock the New England Patriots.
That's a good one
against the Colts.
That is a good one. Oh man, now it's tough. I'm going to go with Minnesota. Got a real good feeling about the Vikings.
Okay.
So that's who I will take first from moi.
I'm going to lock the Falcons.
I thought about them. They were on my mind. Now's where it gets tough. I'm gonna lock Kansas City. I'm gonna take the other.
Okay.
I feel like I really believe in Andy Reid off the bye. Sipping that Gatorade or Kool-Aid.
I am gonna get risky, and I'm gonna add another one. Because I don't think any of us have taken 4 yet. I am locking the Green Bay Packers.
Wow. Okay. I'm done. I'm not touching that. I don't know. I thought about Seattle, but I am scared about the random Arizona game where they get some turn, like we saw against the Saints. Something like that happens. So and obviously I don't trust the Rams. Don't trust the Raiders enough to make them a lock. Definitely not the Jets. Carolina was a thought for me. Miami was a thought. Don't know. And then Baltimore, New Orleans. That one's still scary. So
that's why, as I said, I don't think either of us done 4. I am also taking the Carolina Panthers.
All right, so I'm up technically 3-0 on this. So John, could you make that back this week? Or I could distance myself, or we could both probably have one be wrong, and we're right back where we were this week. Which is probably what happened. Nonetheless, that will do it for the podcast. If I forgot to mention it earlier, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and rate wherever you're listening or viewing or enjoying this content via our YouTube, which is Shut Up and Ball. We're on all podcast streaming platforms, and we have our socials: Instagram at Shut Up and Ball Pod, Twitter and TikTok are at Shut Up and Ball, and then we have a Facebook page as well. Other than that, you all enjoy your week 9 games, and we will see you all next week to react to them. Adios.